Next slide. There are very different tools, as you are all aware. I understand from Massimo that in the audience we have a lot of representatives from research institutions, from industry, and also from the policymaker side. So I don't tell you any news if I refer to industrial alliances, for example, which are becoming increasingly important to drive innovation generally, but also partly research and innovation investment agendas together with industry. We do have, as you are aware, under Horizon Europe, a very big number of significant and very significant cooperations with industry in what we call the partnerships, Horizon Europe partnerships. There are institutionalized partnerships or other forms of partnerships, which I will come back to in a second. These partnerships are a key tool to develop from basic research to close to market TRL levels, the innovation which we need for this digital and green transition. We also have important projects of common European interest, which give member states the possibility, as you know, to work together on the same area, on technological development, in particular also research and innovation, with help of a more lenient state aid treatment. There is a procedure which is in place based on the treaty, which makes it slightly easier in very specific cases for member states to spend public money in the development of this research and innovation. So next slide. Please, in the industrial strategy, one of the key fora which ensures the openness and inclusiveness of the process to drive the innovation and to drive market development for the necessary technologies together with industry and stakeholders is the Industrial Forum. And the Industrial Forum is already the second type of forum. After this, we had another forum under the last industrial strategy. This year is much wider, and it has created 5 specific task forces in which the Industrial Forum discusses different elements of industrial innovation and market and competitiveness. And these task forces, they link policies and they link policy and tools with what we now call the EU industrial ecosystems. As you might be aware, we have 14 industrial ecosystems, and these ecosystems, according to the updated industrial strategy, they are going to get a transition pathway developed at EU level, which should sketch out the way how these ecosystems, like, for example, one of the first ones, energy-intensive industries, can become more digital, more green, and more resilient. For us, this is very important because Massimo has already referred to the ERA industrial technology roadmaps, which we are developing in DG Research and Innovation. And the updated industrial strategy depicts these industrial technology roadmaps as a key tool to feed the research and innovation considerations into the development of these transition pathways. The next slide, please. So this is what we're doing currently with our colleagues in DG Grow and also with the industry and research stakeholders in the Industrial Forum. The different tools which I outlined in the beginning, the alliances, the IPCIs, and then also the Horizon Europe partnerships, as you understood, there are quite some overlaps in terms of development curve of TRL levels. It is possible that the same tools concern the same type of development of research and innovation. On top, the IPCIs, they are developed at national level. They're very industry driven as well, just as the alliances. So there's quite a potential to make work more coherent, which is important because there can be synergies which are reaped. It can be in terms of finance, that different market segments can be addressed by different instruments. And then obviously also in terms of stakeholders, many of you might actually be part of one of these tools, and have not necessarily had contact with partners which work in a different tool, so in an alliance, but then not in the partnership, or vice versa. That said, these synergies, they are gradually developing, and in DG Research Innovation, we make a very strong effort in this new programming period to increase these synergies in line with the Horizon Europe program. And these synergies can be in terms of cooperation. For example, in clean hydrogen, we have a cooperation between the partnership and the industrial alliance. That includes even the development of the current IPCI. And that cooperation is a bit of a feedback loop. So the uptake discussions, which are led in the Industrial Alliance, they are informed by results from the Research and Innovation Partnership. And vice versa, the obstacles which appear in uptake, they also give obviously very good input into the running of the partnership, because there is no use in developing innovation in an area where market obstacles would not allow the uptake. This similar strategy on synergies is used for batteries, where you all know the alliance. There's already a second alliance on batteries and the IPCIs. We have a partnership on the Horizon Europe, which also develops the research and innovation for batteries, and here there are similar synergies. The same holds for the EIT. The EIT is a different type of partnership, as you know, and the EIT is very involved in the running of the Raw Materials Alliance, for example, and also there, that is a very close cooperation between the two tools. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea that these synergies are not a nice to have. The amounts of taxpayers' money which we spend on the development support of research and innovation are significant. Here is just a snapshot on the amounts we plan to spend on the various Horizon Europe partnerships, here on the green transition. And IPCIs with member state funding, they go far beyond the level of investments we have here. And the Industrial Alliances are not a funding tool, but they can direct these discussions as well. So it's very important to talk to each other, and this is what we're trying to do increasingly more under the new programming period. Next slide, please. This is basically what I already said, that or maybe it gives a different turn still, that in terms of development phase, these different tools, they can benefit from each other because they underlie or they have certain rules they need to follow. So most of you will be aware that industrial alliances and also the IPCIs, they shall not be closed shops. This is not about some companies developing innovation with public money. This is an open process. It needs to be transparent. And it is very important for all of the tools, including the partnerships, that the participation of SMEs can be strengthened. Early discussion, for example, in a European partnership where technologies are developed from basic research to higher TRL levels with industry, early discussions about the potential to scale this up, to make it a technology which might be a breakthrough for the greening of our industry, are very important. They increase the transparency of the whole process. It can even be the basis in the end for the development of an industrial alliance, if there's an appetite in industry. It might also lead to an IPCI later on, but the knowledge about the development of such an alliance on IPCI will be much, much higher if the discussions can start early on. And as I said, this is what we're trying to trigger in the current programming period for the Horizon Europe partnerships. Next slide, please. This is just a rough overview over the different TRL levels. This is not a neat science here, so please refrain from too specific questions whether there are mistakes in this here. It is very, very rough, but it should just say that we have R&I development from basic research to deployment. This is also what industrial technology roadmaps are for. I'll come back to that in a second. And then we have the market creation or the market uptake, basically covered by different instruments. Next slide, please. And with that, I almost stop. The industrial technology roadmaps, which are a new tool under the new era for research and innovation from 2020. The industrial technology roadmaps, they are meant to provide this comprehensive overview of the different tools, other programs like InvestEU, etc., and the state of play in the development of certain types of industrial innovation. So currently in DG R&I, we are working on a roadmap for low carbon industrial technologies, which shall neatly fit into the ecosystem transition pathway for energy intensive industries, which is going to come up next year. We're also working on an industrial technology roadmap for circular industrial technologies. There is obviously a small overlap between the two because circularity is important also for reducing emissions. But these industrial technology roadmaps, they should provide an overview of the current state of play in development of the relevant or most relevant technologies without picking technologies which are particularly worthy of development. It's neutral, but it gives examples of where the development of relevant technologies works well with all the different instruments, or where it might not work very well. And on the basis of that, before the end of 2022, we will, together with industry and R&I stakeholders, draw conclusions from this state of play and that overview in terms of what could be next steps to strengthen R&I. Last slide. I think this is just in rough terms what the industrial technology roadmap process looks like. I said already that all of you, stakeholders, universities, other research institutions, the industry companies, hopefully many SMEs. This is what we really hope for, and then policymakers from member states and EU level. They all contribute or shall contribute to the process, and we have started the work with member states in the ERA Forum for Transition, where there's a specific subgroup on the industrial technology roadmaps. And we are developing in parallel these two strands of discussions to provide that comprehensive overview and state of play of technology development. Yesterday we had a meeting with the subgroup with member states. The interest is very high. We're very grateful for that. And we have a hell lot of work in front of us, and still an open public consultation on the internet, which you will find, and maybe I can share the link also with Massimo later on. It's still open until the end of this month. It has run already for more than 6 weeks, I think. So please, should you want to contribute to that consultation, you're warmly invited. So I will stop here. Those are the tools. These are the general objectives. I'd be really grateful for your questions, to clarify further, and maybe also to spur some engagement in the processes. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much for this effective and fast, if I may say, overview of what you are currently doing in the framework of the European Commission. Let me just move again the camera on a comprehensive view of us. So to start even managing the questions and answers, just a bit of instruction for the people who are attending. We are willing to let you pose your questions directly, so we just kindly ask you to write your name and affiliation in the Q&A chat box to reserve your right to pose your question and to be allowed to open your microphone and camera. So I see Martin Torngren, which currently have made the first question on the Q&A. So Martin, we are going to allow you to become a speaker. feel free to open your microphone and camera when you notice that this is possible. So maybe if you can allow Martin to intervene.
Okay.
You should go in the list of participants, yeah, and find Martin. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that you have to promote the panelists.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can
Yes.
also open your camera, Martin, now. Please go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can share my, I could unmute but not show my camera. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Now
Okay,
we are.
thank you for the presentation. My question was simply, with the increasing complexity of technical systems and the challenges from climate warming and digitalization, we have many specializations and domains, and they are interconnected. For example, if we want to make use of digitalization to promote the circular economy, that would require experts from all over domains and disciplines. I'm thinking of the old networks of excellence. They were only academic, but in Stockholm we have been running so-called competence networks to have dialogues between the domains and the stakeholders, of course on a smaller scale. I'm just wondering what the Commission sees, how can we deal with that sort of necessary fragmentation? How can we try to combat that and promote the needed interactions?
Thank you for the question.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Martin. No, you're perfectly right. Obviously, there are very strong relationships between the different technological areas, and I think it's always a bit of a curve that there are times in which we try to intensify or to broaden the approach we're taking in order to to address all the aspects, the different ones from different worlds, so be it digital, the green technologies, and then the social side, etc. Up to the point where then it becomes too complex and the results start suffering, and then sometimes the curve goes a bit the other way. So it's a very difficult thing to do, but it's necessary. As you said, we won't get the results we need by ignoring, by siloing away. So what I can say is that from the European Commission side, we already work very closely between DG Research and Innovation and DG Grow, for example. We also do work very closely with DG Connect. And as you know, the programming, for example, in Horizon Europe, the programming for this new program has been done in co-creation. So there's a very, very complex and very deep process which has led to the work programs which now give the funding under Horizon Europe. And this strategic planning and strategic programming is an exercise in which all the different Commission services have their voice. And it is kind of a pyramid, and it spits out in the end work programs which have a very high degree. Normally, I mean, in detail, I said it's difficult, but they have a very high degree of coherence because people have actually spoken to each other pretty intensely. Another issue which I would like to underline is in terms of European partnerships. Under the current programming period, we are developing tools in which this coherence and the close talk between different partnerships is strengthened. So one tool which is currently developing are inter-partnership assemblies. This is done, for example, under hydrogen. Hydrogen is a pretty horizontal technology, and there are many other partnerships which are closely related. So it can be from the mobility sector, that would be together with DG Move, and it can also be other, like for example, DFIS on zero emission aviation, etc. So that's what we're also doing with the partnerships. Last but not least, I referred to the Industrial Forum run by our colleagues in DG Grow. And the Industrial Forum is really a very inclusive process. The experts who sit in the Industrial Forum, they come from all kinds of areas of industry. And they also come from horizontally working research institutions. So there is a certain degree of coherence which we can ensure by the governance of these tools. Then in the end, I think it is always the will. It's a bit like my name, or ein Wille ist es auch ein Weg. We say in German, where a will, there's a way. People need to talk to each other. They need to want to get the joint results. And very currently now, yesterday in the State of the Union speech, our President von der Leyen has underlined one of these areas, and this is in between the green and the digital transition, that we would like to use digital technologies as much as we can also to drive the green transition. And when Mrs. von der Leyen says these things, she's very serious about that, and the tools which the Commission has at its disposal are actually used in this way. So there's going to be quite a close cooperation between these two.
Thank you. Before going to the next question, and this David Agota, which I asked to prepare to intervene, I have a question as well. My understanding of the EU industry strategies and the roadmaps is also to try to put a bit of order in a system which somehow is full of actors, initiatives, and is a bit fragmented. I'm referring to one very important area, which is the one of raw materials, where we know there is a high interdependence from China and so on, where basically the Commission has a set of at least 3 to 4 different initiatives, like the KIC, like the Alliance, like the Innovation Partnership, which I think is managed by DG Grow, and also, if you want, a technology platform on mining technologies and so on. So my impression is that at the moment in the dialogue you're managing and the inclusion, you are making more reference to the Alliance, or am I wrong?
No, actually, raw materials is a good example for these synergies which we try to create, because indeed the KIC you refer to under the EIT is managing a part of the Raw Materials Alliance. So it is actually that there is more a complementary synergy, a bit as compared to under hydrogen, since there is no one size fits all. The players need to work well together, and under raw materials, this is how it has developed. The EIT KIC is managing with its own resources and its knowledge a part of the Raw Materials Alliance. I can't even now say precisely what part that is, but it is complementary to the rest of the work of the Alliance.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask David Agota to enter, please. David, now you should be capable to talk and intervene. I don't see, yeah, there you are. Feel free to open your microphone and introduce yourself briefly, name and affiliation.
Thank you so much. It took some time because I had to rejoin somehow. So,
yeah.
And my video is stopped, so you will not see me anyway.
Yeah, we will solve this issue. Is a technical problem.
Anyway.
Yeah, now we are starting.
So, my name is Agota David, and I'm representing the National Research Development and Innovation Office of Hungary, but I'm working here in Brussels at our permanent representation. And I would have a question about the industry technology roadmaps, because you mentioned on the last slide that they also plan to involve quite many stakeholders into the drafting of these roadmaps. And is this online consultation the only tool for this, or you also plan some other actions? Especially, I'm curious if how we want to involve the industry in this process. Thank you.
Yes, so I understand correctly, this is not about defense industry now you're talking, but the industry generally.
Industry in general, yes.
No, this is a broad consultation process which we have launched. So this consultation which we have now currently open is on or precisely for the roadmap on low carbon industrial technologies. There's going to be similar consultation on the circular industrial technology. So we plan it. And we will also make use of larger events, like, for example, the R&I days, possibly in cooperation with DG Grow. We can discuss also further discussions at the industry days. But these are things which are still in the making, because the events are not coming up immediately. It's going to be a broad consultation. We're going to have one or two targeted events as well, in which we would discuss precise issues, specific issues with experts. But the consultations are meant to be the backbone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one in the row is Paul Frisvold. We are going to upgrade you. Just 1 second. He probably has left. Okay. Then we go to Uwe Wellhausen. So Uwe, you could be capable to introduce yourself and even probably open your camera, because I think we solved the problem. Uwe?
Yeah, hi, does it work?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, yeah, I have a question about what about the startups and the SMEs in this process? I didn't see it explicitly mentioned. So could you a little bit explain about your view, how they can contribute?
Yes, as said, we appeal to SMEs and startups, not particularly actually, to SMEs which would take up the relevant technologies, for example, in the area of low carbon industrial technologies, and also for those who have the technical know-how to develop them, to contribute to our consultations. As you know, it is always a little bit more difficult to get SME voices into these type of exercises, because it's just simpler for bigger companies to run, for example, Brussels offices, or they're having people particularly contributing to these consultations. But we hope that we will still get quite some feedback. This is also why the consultation is open for a relatively long period. And we have different forums in both DG Grow and also in DG Research and Innovation, which will allow us to contact, at least in a targeted manner, groups of SMEs which are relevant in areas like low carbon industrial technologies. So one thing we're going to do is, we are actually already doing it, is to work with our European Innovation Council colleagues who have a new tool under Horizon Europe, which is called the EIC Forum, if I remember correctly. In that forum, there are tendency, I guess, more high-tech, but there are SMEs gathered who are active in the development of industrial technologies. So this is one tool we're going to use to broaden our consultations. And the other one is still ongoing. It is discussions which will take place in the next weeks or so with our colleagues in DG Grow on possible involvement of the Enterprise Europe network.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We have an new colleague willing to intervene, Aristidis Kaloudis. So we are now allowing you to join us, and as soon as the system allows you. Where it is? Here it is. Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
You can also show your camera. Yeah.
I hope so. Hello. Nice to see you. Many thanks for the invitation, and many thanks for this encompassing and overview of the current policies. Massimo, again, also it's important with this initiative as well, I can say that as a part of NTNU. I have a question and a comment, if it is okay with you. The first one is, and the question is about the university, the role of universities. NTNU has a project now trying to develop indicators for how universities contribute to innovation in general, the innovation ecosystems in particular, and also there is an issue here about the industrial contribution to the industrial innovation. And my question is into, broadly speaking, and given the complexity that you described and the complexity of the policy landscape that Massimo pointed out, how do you think that it's the best way for universities to connect apart from the horizon? Obviously, we have a very long tradition with participating in the horizon, but here you are describing, of course, the whole value chain, and the question is into what extent should and would and or we must engage with the overall ecosystem activities. That's a question which I know it's a quite general and difficult probably, but that's one. And in particular, you described the one fantastic, interesting in task forces. I am particularly interested in the first one. Is there how the organization of the systematic analysis of ecosystems for industry, obviously, in task force 1 is organized? That would be a little bit interesting for us probably, and I tend to know in general to know a little bit more about. And my last point is that it's very interesting to see the division or the allocation of a budget into different broad areas of technologies. And I see that hydrogen receives a little bit more than batteries. Both are extremely important areas. But I mean, how would you mind to say what are your comments on that, and how that came about? I mean, why a little bit more in hydrogen and less, a little bit, but less in batteries? Thank you very much.
Challenging questions, even politically.
No, thanks. Yeah, there were several sub questions. I understand. So maybe first on the budget question, as you know, what I showed was just the Commission proposal of budget for the different partnerships. So this is the end of a long process of budget discussions with the different stakeholders. I think in rough terms, I can just say that we all witness the importance in public perception of hydrogen. Hydrogen has become, rightly so, I think, a key to greening industry, which nobody really wants to miss. So yesterday in the discussions at our subgroup in the ERA Forum for Transition, we looked through the programs at member state level which develop low carbon industrial technologies. And even though we're not really focusing on energy production, so hydrogen is not really our focus in the roadmap, we came across this surprising result, or maybe not surprisingly, that each member state has a hydrogen strategy. Each single one. I was still surprised by that. So there's a lot of recovery and resilience funds going into this. It is in everybody's mouth. So I think this is also where a slight justification for the budget under our tools comes from. And it is really terribly important. And upscaling hydrogen technologies is terribly important. It's a big chunk of the possible reductions in CO2. So for the cooperation possibilities, and in particular the involvement of universities in this industrial innovation process, there are, as I said, different tools. So first, the ones which I know a little bit less about, that would be how universities are represented in the industrial forum itself. I think they are, but I'm shooting from the hip. So looking through the members, I guess we will find somebody from the university landscape, certainly from the science landscape generally. but that would be something to be checked with DG Grow. And then this is also a question, it might be worth to research a bit with the help of Massimo to see in how far the different task forces which are running now and which have just been set up still have the potential to widen further and involve players from the university landscape. I would personally very much welcome that. So I hope that DG Grow colleagues would be able to cater for that. But I can't, I don't know enough about the procedures and how the discussions are organized. Last, and that is the key point for us, the involvement of universities in the development of industrial technology roadmaps is key for us. I think the university is also mentioned in the ERA communication itself in the context of the roadmaps, but certainly even if there was no specific mention, but I think there is, we absolutely want universities in there, because this is precisely what we're trying to do with the roadmaps. We do not want to do just policy talk. It's simple to collect information from EU programs in rough terms, like what is spent under InvestEU on greening projects, etc. This is not the only thing we want to do under the roadmaps. What we want to do is, first of all, we start with a real big chunk of the whole evidence report, which starts with specific innovative technologies and their potential to reduce CO2 emissions, for example. It's scientific work. It's the prospect report which we published. It's a pilot project report, a prospect report, sorry, that has some figures which our colleagues in the Joint Research Center have provided us. It is a very specific thing to do. So we're looking into certain innovative technologies that potential to reduce CO2 emissions, and as much as we can into the possibilities to increase cost efficiency for industry. Because this is where we, and there I mean universities and the European Commission and other parts of the science world, possibly including RTOs as well, where we can make, where we can have added value, that we provide as much as we can in knowledge on the potential of new innovative technologies, and then start by looking into and how much money is actually currently spent from EU programs into that. This is a little bit what we're trying to do with our evidence reports. So again, we would be very, very glad if universities could widely contribute also to the consultation, which we are currently running. And we are in touch with our unit in DG Research and Innovation dealing with the universities, in particular under in the other ERA actions, to ensure that feedback from universities can be used in the development of these roadmaps.
Yeah, if I can also add, as I have Aristidis, which is a colleague in Ateneo, since the start of Horizon Europe and even a bit in advance, we are trying to somehow create internally groupings under specific thematic fora that somehow are able to collect the multidisciplinary capabilities of our professors in a specific field. We have a thematic group on hydrogen, we have a thematic group on batteries, but we're also creating new ones according also to the positionings that Ateneo achieve in participating in the various initiatives. And there is in the making, for example, another thematic group on raw materials that basically is supposed to collect the professors that are currently sitting in the various initiatives, the KIC, the innovation partnership, the technology platform for the mining, and also maybe in the future, the raw material alliance, which we still are not part, but we are planning to. So we are trying to have a consolidated approach, and if you want, we can also discuss offline about it and try to find how to valorize your contribution in the global context of NTU. Given that, I would like to pass to the next speaker because time is running, and I would like to accommodate all the questions that are coming now. We have now Amleto Gabellone, which I suspect is Italian, but if you can introduce yourself, Amleto, after we give you the possibility to talk, just give 1 second to accommodate technically.
Okay.
Okay, now you should be able to speak and open your camera. Please, Amleto.
Okay, good morning, and thank you for the invitation for this very interesting webinar. Yeah, my name is Amleto Gabellone. I work for NATO Science and Technology Organization. in specific the Center for Maritime Research and Experimentation here in Italy, in La Spezia. Yeah, my question is very simple. What about your relationships, your connection with the defense industry, and all the, I mean, the DG or the activities that are related to the industrial, defense, technological, and base, these activities that are, I think that are very related, closely related to your roadmap, your agenda. Thanks.
Thanks, Angelo. Yeah, that's a more specific area. And there are two answers I would like to provide. First of all, defense industry as such, as you are better aware than I am, has a different fund. And so there is a natural limit to synergies and, or at least direct synergies and cooperations with the Horizon program due to the difference in the two funds. So research and innovation is run for defense under a different fund for very good reasons, which we don't need to re-explain here, but it's about the dual use or not, the non-military use of Horizon. So that is the biggest part of the answer, I think. We have in the industrial strategy, as far as I recall, the notion of roadmaps for industrial technologies, also in DEFIS terms. I do not recall now specifically whether that mentions the keyword defense industry. It might, but where the part of the industrial strategy which talks about the industrial technology roadmaps under ERA also refers to other roadmap exercises. And there is a specific mention of a DG DEFIS exercise, which I do not recall precisely, but it might actually be precise, exactly on defense. Then last part, we do cooperate with colleagues in DG DEFIS still, not on the keyword of the defense industry as such, but when we come to aviation. So I mentioned the zero emission aviation. This is one of the areas in which our wish to create more synergies is very, very strong for the time being. We have a very close cooperation between DGR and I, the responsible unit which creates or which has basically set up the clean aviation or zero emission aviation partnership, together with DG DEFIS, and all together they are working on the development of the current alliance on zero emission aviation. So there's a very close cooperation and very strong synergies which we are creating. For the keyword defense as such, as said, this is a little bit more complex.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one is an old friend, Richard Tufts. Richard, give us just 1 second to give you the floor, because technically there are some moves to be done. Is not is Richard, exactly. Okay, Richard, now you have full right to intervene and open your camera.
Yeah, okay. Luckily, you can't see me possibly, but it's very nice to see you again, Massimo, and thanks very much for a very interesting presentation on a what I think is becoming a very, very complex topic. And so it's very good to hear a good explanation of what's going on. But my question, you might have guessed, is this seems to be very much a top-down. The industry strategy seems to be very much a top-down approach to looking at different technologies and various things. And my question, which in a way mirrors your colleague from university, is what is the role then of this more place-based ecosystem? And that means what about the role of the regional dimension here?
I'm not entirely sure whether I understood the first part of the question, but I understood the last bit, which is the, okay, it's written there. Yeah, top-down perspective, indeed. Yes, okay, well, that's a, thanks for the ball, Richard. Excellent. So indeed, well, I mean, first of all, what is in everybody's mouth is smart specialization. Obviously, in terms of developing industrial innovation, this has a long history and is very successful. It has become, as you all know, part of the discussions in the European semester as well. national and regional reforms to become more innovative and make industry more competitive. So a lot of things are actually happening. So what are we doing with that? The industrial strategy is indeed quite silent about that perspective. DG R&I is currently working on the development of what we call a pan-European innovation ecosystem approach that is mentioned in the industrial strategy. The form is not laid out in the strategy, but this incorporates the approach which you're referring to, Richard. The territorial dimension of innovation and industrial innovation is important, and it would be a mistake in our view to talk about the development of, for example, low carbon. Let's take a concrete example. Let's take the batteries, for example, or even microelectronics, where the top-down approach or the top-down tools are very known. We have alliances, we have IPCIs, so these are things which are very, very prominent. But still, the cooperation on these different technologies, they are somewhere. The people who actually do this, they are sitting somewhere. They're sitting somewhere in a cluster normally, and this then gets the chapeau in the end and gets as an EU cooperation form, it gets the label of an alliance. And it can be financed through IPCIs. But still, these people are sitting somewhere. So they need the tissue of regional innovation to develop these technologies. And this is something we dedicate a lot of energy to in the industrial technology roadmaps. When you find the prospect report, the pilot prospect report on low carbon industrial technologies, which we have posted, I think, when was that? Beginning of this year or maybe end of last year. We already have a chapter, even though it's just a pilot, we already have a chapter which gives a bit of a taste of these regional hotspots in technology development, where our colleagues in the Joint Research Center play a key role, because they do analyze these things very much in detail. And we would like to build on this cooperation, which they have also with DG Regio, in order to shed more light on what's actually happening out there. What are the key practices? What are the key centers of excellence in the area, for example, for low carbon industrial technologies, and then later on circular industrial technologies, and draw lessons from that together with the research world and industry, as I said.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Julia with the I. No, Julia, I, L. Julia. She left probably. No, she's there. There she is. Yeah. So Julia, another old friend here connecting. I'm very happy to see you with us. Just 1 second. The system is elaborating your upgrade to speaker. It's a bit slow. Meanwhile, that Julia is being upgraded. You are currently working on two
industrial technology
roadmaps. Are you planning to do some more in the future, or given the fact that they are quite wide, because we are talking about low carbon and circular economy, or these are the two that you are expecting to deliver and then we have to work on them?
It's a good question. There's no clear answer to that yet, because we have asked the question to member states in the ERA Forum for Transition, and we are still open from the side of DG R&I. That said, as you rightly underlined, it's complex exercises. So we are on full steam on these two roadmaps. The circular industrial technology roadmap has just started. The low carbon one is slightly more progressed already. So this is where we are right now. We are in constant discussions. Yesterday, we did not bring up the question specifically with member states, but it is still an open issue. There might be other areas, but it's also a question of the deadline, which in ERA is set as the end of 2022. To have a solid roadmap, there is some time needed. in particular to get together all this evidence we're talking about, because this is where we think we can really make an added value. Other areas would, yes, could concern other industrial ecosystems. We had, there are many cases where this might make sense: culture, creative industries, social economy,
Ocean.
Health. Sorry?
Ocean.
Possibly, I don't know.
Just by chance, I'm mentioning, as you can understand.
Yeah, from a Norwegian.
Exactly. So I would like now to give the floor to Julia. Julia, welcome.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yes,
now.
yes, we can hear you,
Okay,
and you can
so
also share your camera.
where I am now located, so the light is not very good, so I have decided not to share the screen. You have my picture. So thank you very much for the presentation. For me, it was a very good one, because I have now a better view of the whole ecosystem. So myself, I'm also an NCP national NCP coordinator, and I for sure share your presentation if you allow us to have it with the other NCPs, because I think they can play a very important role in mobilizing all the actors that they can bring into life all these policies and strategies. Do you agree with this?
The actors, sorry, there was the sound which was a bit fading at the beginning.
NCP network.
The NCP network. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I always miss that it's written actually then. Yes, the NCP network. We have no, I mean, the consultations are obviously open to everybody. So that would be a place where even from the NCP network, we would be very grateful if there could be feedback also from your expertise, because your expertise is vast. So we would indeed like to hear as much from your side as from RTOs, what the practices are, where are the current priorities, what's happening in your daily work when we talk about low carbon industrial technology development. That would be very good. We don't have a specific tool now in which we, like a network consultation, for example, which we would foresee specifically. But I think I note your point, and I will discuss with the colleagues in-house in how far we can maybe tap in a bit more specific way into your network's knowledge.
Yeah, because basically I think that Julia is also proposing for the NCP networks to share the view about the consultation and try to engage national stakeholders, because normally they are very well connected with the local ecosystems of industrial actors, research actors, and so on. Am I right, Julia?
Yes, you're right, Massimo. So this was also the idea.
Yeah, so an offer of collaboration with the Commission to increase the engagement of national stakeholders, by sharing the information and trying to mobilize them. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be very welcome, Julia. And as I said, I know the point for me, and I will inquire in-house how we could best make that happen. That would indeed be a massive advantage for our consultations, and then also for the dissemination of preliminary results.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent. So 11:59. We have managed all the questions. A lot of people survived until the end, meaning that your presentation has been extremely interesting.
All the questions.
Also given the question we received. So I would like to thank you all for the participation, for the active engagement you've shown. Just for you to know, the meeting has been recorded and we'll put at the disposal of the one who would like also to see it again in our website, which is under the main page of the NTNU Brussels office. So just surf on Google NTNU Brussels office and you will find also the access to the 1 Hour with Europe set of series of webinars. You can also check the previous one that we had. Normally we meet once a month. The one which registered for the first time are now part of our mailing list, so they will be invited to the next editions. If you don't want to be part, please send us an email and we of course take you out without bothering you anymore. Given that, I would like to thank again a lot Angelo for his presence here. I would like to thank Media and Martine, which were in the background and managed technically the system to work properly, allowing you to follow us and to listen. And looking to meet you in our next 1 hour with Europe appointment. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.